All right. Thank you, Alar, for inviting, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and show you a bit about how we are leveraging technology, or actually how all of the bigger corporations or innovative corporations should leverage, and what kind of obstacles we face in these fields. I will start. I'm just telling myself, as Alar told, I'm Vaks. I'm working for Microsoft now over 7 years. I started in Estonia, then I did something in Baltics, and then I moved to Munich, where Microsoft has Central Eastern European headquarters, and then I ended up dealing with our startup subsidiaries, which is now already called New Markets. It's a set of 15 countries, spreading from Adriatic, Balkan region, in between of Moldova, Belarus, then some of the Caucasus, and to Central Asia, including Mongolia, which is a bit of bizarre if you look at internally in Microsoft. We consider Mongolia as Central and Eastern Europe, whereas it might make much more logical sense of having it in together with Asia or Greater China region. And if I look, I see that we have here like 22 different countries. I see Georgian and Uzbekistani flags. These are the regions which I also cover. We opened up our business in Georgia 2 years ago. We do engage already in Uzbekistan, but we do not yet have a legal presence there, but have in time frame of in couple of next year also opening subsidiary there, because it's a big country in terms of population, like 27 million, so, and half of them are being basically in your ages. So it's a very interesting place where we would be definitely pursuing. So to start with, I thought that initially I changed, like show you what are the reasons behind all of these things, what we would say that what we would like to manage from business side, and then the performance, as eventually in business, like failure and success is always defined by financial results, and for that you need to have something how you do it. From there is like 5 different topics which are basically the major factors or drivers of the change that we are seeing today. We are having the great rebalancing between the developed and the emerging world. Nowadays, majority of the growth will come from the emerging worlds, as every basically week 14 million people around the world are moving to the cities. So there is a great change in the respect of that, as well as internally, where we have, let's say, the CE new markets, out of which Central Asia and Caucasus are greatly the growth opportunities for CE area. At the same time, we have a similar geographical clusters also in Western and Central Africa, as well as Southeast Asia, and then LATAM, I mean Latin America's countries. And these are clearly for Microsoft, or probably all over the businesses who are driving or looking for new opportunities. These are the growth regions, as people are moving more people are moving toward the middle class in these regions. And with nowadays, with the global grid, if you will, everything is connected and the physical presence is not so important anymore. At the same time, we always have the rise of the planet, what we need to consider, which is clearly on the mind of all of the leaders from various aspects, starting with CO emissions, ending with water usage, which is clearly the points where we definitely need to redefine how we actually use it. For example, today, 60% of the water is being used for agriculture, which is definitely a place where we should find more efficiency to change that. And then, of course, the overall market states where we are today, that government debts are in the biggest proportions today, and likely to increase going forward still a couple of years. And from that, basically, we go forward for the need of the innovation, because that's basically the only thing via which you can provide to the ever-growing need what we see on our planet from both population as well as the overall wishes and the living standard-wise. Clearly, there is no one formula for good innovation or how it should look, and this is mainly driven then totally different aspects. It's about the people or the talent who you hire, then the environment in terms of, let's say, statutory environment, how easily or how much there is red tape or government regulations on the way, and then of course how much you put aside resources to actually produce this innovation and give some time, because it's always a risky endeavor, and probably you know very well that majority of the things that get started up do not reach far, but at the same time, thanks to the overall innovation, by its definition, the minority who will prevail will have at the same time significant impact. And in order to enable all that, it's clear that these are the, let's say, 6 items I have listed here, which you need to constantly consider. And one of the, besides obviously people and the other things, is clearly the embracing the disruption. So knowing that the only thing that will be present constantly is the change, and you should be comfortable with the change either way it goes, and you should just be able to adapt as we go. From that, basically, we reach to the so-called new reality, if you will, which is probably the term that got put under the environment after the crisis we saw a couple of years ago, and actually are still dealing with. And here it's clear that it's applicable to all of the environments, both business and government, that we have a different understanding of resource availability and how we actually use these resources. Then the constant topic is about productivity, and we continuously need to create more innovation, otherwise it's a trap from where we could get out. And in this new reality, it's clear that it's relatively easy for companies to start looking for the options of cutting OPEX or operating expense as they go. But at the end of the day, the ones who merge out as the winners are clearly the ones who actually take the smart risks and put aside funds during these difficult times to actually nurture the new thinkings and new ways of doing things. And the ones who continue fueling innovations will ultimately then evolve as winners from the situation and enabling them to grow further. From this reality, we basically can see that there is an interlink with business challenges and finance imperatives, which is then the concept of for a need for the longer term planning or strategic and both tactical planning, as well as the productivities and then the cost control, and as well risk management, because that's the critical part of making sure that you don't bet too much on one side, and at the same time that you don't diversify meaningfully much, otherwise you lose the focus, because there is clearly a limited set of articles or areas in where you could be successful, and every company needs to define themselves and then definitely focus on these ones. For example, with General Electric, Jack Welch, you might know or recall, he had the aspiration that they should be only in business where they can be either first or second worldwide basis, and they should get out or get rid of the businesses where they are unable to be in this top 2. Similar approach, Microsoft has also several businesses where we are in, but all of them are having some common denominator, which is basically the industry we are in, and which is about collaboration and overall performance management and respective tools for various companies and how they actually engage and deal with things. so this is basically where these two different things interlink. And if I go further, then I translate it more than to the finance imperatives, because that's the piece what you ultimately need to cover well in order to manage your business challenges putting forward on this slide. So, and to give you an example of using Microsoft, the complexity what is driven by us is shown in this sort of a matrix that we are having. So we have basically 3 views how we look our business. It's geographical view, it's the business or product view, and then it's the segment view in the perspective how we actually segment our customers. And with this segmentation, obviously, then we also focus differently and incentivize the respective channel or partners how they should engage with our different product mix and in different geographies, because the geographies are obviously in very different maturity levels. And of course, this kind of matrix creates a lot of issues, a lot of data, and clearly a need for the one version of truth. Because if you look at the different businesses and different segments and different geographies, they easily can see the things entirely different compared to their neighbors, just because of their different cultural, religious, historical backgrounds. And there is a clear need that we would need to have one version of truth, which we apply then worldwide, so that whenever we actually drive or review business, we look at the same set of metrics or dashboards or scorecards, and we talk about the same thing, so that we do not lose the time for any, let's put it this way, data quality discussions or misinterpretations, how we translate the information what we are looking, and how we actually measure. And obviously there is always then the room for interpretation, and there is always the issue of like what is the absolute truth in terms of, even if we gather the input from different research companies who provide us as this. And with this also, as we have grown constantly bigger, the difficulty rises also from the clarity over the roles and responsibilities, as well as the different accountabilities putting forward. So to minimize these kind of risks, so internally we have such kind of process in place, which we call like strategic planning and performance management, which is basically continuous cycle. Starting with media review, which always takes place in December, February timeframe. We go in depth on every geographical locations, and we look at exactly the same set of data all over the places. Some of them are industry specific, some of them are our priority specific, but we always look at the same set of data, and we walk through these during this media review very depth. I would say for the sum of the tastes, probably even do depth. These are sessions like where people actually prepare for 2 weeks, and then there is a 2 or 3 hours review with a more senior management team, and then it goes up as we come from sales location to sub-region area and so forth. Then in March timeframe, and of course in media review we also have a first outlook for the next fiscal year. Microsoft fiscal years ends with June and starts with July. So basically we just closed our year, and now for us new fiscal year has just started. And then in March what we call PRISM, which is a priority setting meeting held in Seattle, where basically all of the country managers are gathered, and then corporate basically takes input from them, and then at the same time briefs them on what are the priorities we would be looking at, and based on what the budget for the next fiscal will be built on, and the respective next fiscal year performance will be managed. And then we have the budget, which is April, June, where we basically align business with the funding and plans and set forth, and then the process continues. And this is happening basically, well, basically it's happening every year. It has some modifications, but this kind of rhythm is changing. The modifications are basically linked to the fact that I'm raised before, that we have the issues of having so much chaos and so much different businesses and so much different maturity levels of markets where we operate. And out of that, we need to have some principles via which we operate, and these are the ones what are listed here. We have subsidiary scorecard. It's probably something what all of you have in some stage of your studies come across, is the scorecard per se or whatever you put there. We have also, it's a scorecard of roughly 30 different metrics. Some of them are clearly financial ones, like the actual performance and variance against budgets and forecast. And then we have some very industry-specific metrics, like some specific product breadth and reach to these markets, as well as then for us, critical pieces also around the intellectual property rights, the piracy rates and initiatives around, plus as well citizenship and PR type of things. P&L is then the profit and loss statement, so that's the ultimate ranking system via which all of the countries get ranked and performance measured and then respectively awarded, because at the end of the day, that's the piece that counts. Plus, then we have also a compete dashboard, so that we make sure that we do not measure ourselves against ourselves, but we also see what competition is doing and how we actually relate our performance in comparison to our competitors. For here, like I see the Apple, for example, or Google, that we see a huge competitor, as well as the VMware from more specific data visualization space, plus also then the new ones who are coming on board in the respect of as the industry change more toward the cloud computing, we will have a totally different set of competitors. Amazon, for example, who is for now, until now, has been considered not a competitor in that sense, but they are clearly already providing quite significant proportion of cloud computing capabilities, and as well as others, and then how it changes the industry in terms also for the telcos, as we have, I'm looking at, I see today it seems again 3 million cellular or mobile phones being sold, and the question also on this is then the content, and for telcos it's the thing that for them they become utilities, and basically the value is being created in the content what you would be using or consuming via these smartphones in use, which then in a way might make telcos irrelevant on the channel, and their margin would be then determined by the content providers and not by them. So that will be or could be probably painful shift for the telco industry if they do not manage to position themselves well enough in the new cloud environment and providing the cloud services. So from these things like the performance and the planning set, as well as the free operating principles that we look at, and the business rhythm that we run is monthly, and then the quarterly one is basically from the P&L perspective, the quarterly accountability is the ultimate accountability against what management teams all over the places are measured against. And to make all of this running smoothly and successfully, it's clear that all of these different parties need to partner in order to create this positive business impact. And as I said before, The thing is that we clearly need to have the one version of the truth via which we are looking at. And from that truth, we need to have then the insight. And using this insight, we should be able to thrive and influence the business as we go forward. And from that perspective, I take you back and show you from where we are coming from, what challenges we have had. Obviously, as we have grown constantly, the challenge has for us been on data. So we have a lot of data available, but it's disconnected and not easy to understand and measure, and it creates also then the overlapping accountabilities with different parties. So the first thing is that we started with a data cleanup in order to actually get rid of various shadow applications, because if you have a lot of data and you don't have a good process or system behind it, you end up every country or region or business group creating their own views of what they see relevant for themselves, which might not be interlinked with a party next to him or the party who actually should be executing on these items that they want to clearly see. So from the first point, you need to then sort out the data to agree on the one version of the truth, and basically killing all of these shadow applications and the different views that they were looking, making sure that we would be looking at one. And with that one, we created what we call core finance, where we actually have all of these standardized reports and scorecards and respective analytics delivered. And then besides that, we need to make sure that we also manage and constantly and have some policy and governance how we actually evolve this set of data. And we then are looking all over the places the same thing. So from that, we basically reached to the different options. And the examples, what you see here are like real life examples. We have always the ad hoc capability, but the ad hoc capability is enabled just that if people want to have some specific things, more in-depth insight, but these kind of things are never formally reviewed, and none of the employees should come and tell that he or she used and lose some time because he built something on his own, rather than using the standard reports, what has been built and which view gets looked at from the very bottom to the very top. So this obviously saves us a lot of time and, of course, therefore the money, as we have everything in one central location and everybody knows where it is, and then they can then drill down and filter these different reports into the view they want or they need at the time. Out of this cleaning and getting these reports done, what you then end up is that you have a lot of data. And it can be difficult to have a meaningful understanding if you look at some report and you have 1,000 different figures and you get grilled or reviewed on with this, let's say, this media review, and you get getting the ad hoc questions coming from one end to another, and you are expected to respond. It's quite a stretch environment in that sense, and it's clear that you need to, out of this data that you have now been cleaned up, you need to be able to sort it out how you actually read it or make it more meaningful. And from that, basically, where do we reach is the data visualization. So these kind of things make your Excel or whatever type of the report much more meaningful in terms of pinpointing the business challenges, what you are having on, or in terms of immediately showing you the focus areas as well as the areas which are going well. So from that perspective, I would say heat maps are we have different views, but heat maps are also clearly one of my favorites because it very clearly, and you can change the color pattern, whatever suits your tastes, but it clearly shows you immediately on different views. It shows you by the color what is the status. So green is obviously green, and red is the area where you would not like to be. And then with the status and the size of the rectangle shown here, it also shows the magnitude or the size of the issue or the size of the business what we are talking about, so that you can easily pinpoint that you first, let's say, look at the bigger red rectangles and then the smaller ones to see what are the topics behind that, and that makes the discussion much more constructive and much more meaningful in terms of the usage of time, that you don't necessarily need to focus all of these rectangles on every, let's say, monthly or quarterly review, but you focus on the things that are not going well, and you focus also to the things that are going well, so that you would be able to learn from the things that are going well to enable the knowledge sharing, because this heat map can be just split by products, it can be split by geographies or whatever. So for example, if you split it by geographies, you can easily then reallocate the resources between the geographies that perform and the geographies that do not perform, so that these people actually can do a meaningful knowledge sharing among them, and making sure and telling them what they are doing differently, what has enabled them to success. And then on the ground, if you drill down to details, you can pinpoint issues, and you really don't need to necessarily know the figure by whatever digit. All you care is basically, is it red, rose, green, or however you want to basically name it. And there is other types of also, like different KPIs or key performance indicators, and as well then the tornado chart, which then provide also more meaningful thing besides just having tons and tons of figures. With all of this, there is then always the concern, or for us, is then to be connected constantly as a company who operates in majority of geographies worldwide. You basically up and running 4 hours a day, and you need to stay connected in a meaningful way in order to gain the insight for the discussions that you are having, and most importantly, that you would be able to align between the different locations on priorities that we are having and focusing on. So it's basically all about then around the priorities, and then obviously on the accountabilities and items around that. So with these items, we would need to make sure that we share our accountabilities, and we internally provide as much as possible visibility to all of the parties. So actually, we translate the different scorecards down to the country levels, but all of them are actually same in the set of the worldwide basis, and the metrics are all the same. It's just you might go deeper if you move down on the organization on some specific metric behind, but it's actually translating the goals and shared accountabilities on worldwide basis in a way that we are looking at the same set of data and have the same transparency around our environments. So, and for that, I mean, for collaboration, when we have a lot of set of the products that we have now, of course, we have also Skype, which was acquired a year ago, and there is just last week I was in in state our global briefing, and over there, among other things, then there was shown also the things what we have currently in our laboratories and how the future might look after 5 or 10 years from today's perspective. And there was also good works being done integrating Skype solution to the different office and cloud computing environments. Now as the new version of Windows 8 is coming out end of October as a general availability, then that definitely will be again milestone in industry, similar if we would go back to 1995 when basically the Windows 95 came down and changed significantly the world. And if you start just thinking back that time, there was no internet, there was no, I don't know, SharePoints, sharing capabilities, nothing was there. And computer was still on the desktop, whereas now with the cloud environment, everything is in a way moved away from desktop. And interestingly enough, you might look at also that in a way we are going back in history as this has been during end of 60s, 70s, when there was a terminal computer where you had the central computer and everybody, all the users basically accessed it via terminal, which itself had no computing capability. In a way, we are now going back to it, but it's just much more connected and not sitting in silo as it was at the end of 60s or 70s, and now it's being globally spread, and we now talk about basically constantly in terms of having seamless interaction every time we are awake, and we at the same time want all our devices to be synchronized. So it's basically 3 screens, what we always talk about. It's the TV, it's the laptop, and then it's the mobile phone or mobile device, may it be tablet or any other. And the interest is that these are all constantly and seamlessly synchronized with each other's. And as you have seen also from Apple or from Android, from Google, everything moves towards applications, and same is with Windows 8. It's all about applications, and then embracing the developer community who are actually then building these applications to run on these various cloud computing capabilities. And just to demonstrate some of the visions that might make your imagination running, I have such a video also to show you. Do we have sound now? I don't hear anything.
You can imagine something.
You can imagine something. We used to have. So just to tell, it's not this is not a science fiction what you are seeing here. It's currently a reality in our laboratories, somewhat enhanced, but this is all there already in terms of the visualization as well as in terms of the connections what you would be seeing as the data availability that you are having on these different things. Okay, so that at least shows you something what has been done and what's going on. And just to additional point on that one, huge challenge has also up to until now been the voice recognition. And just last week I was shown that seems that this has been somewhat cracked now as well, and items in laboratory already have the pretty good voice recognitions from human speech already in different languages. It was ready for Mandarin, Arabic, French, and English, which is rather impressive. And if you recall from the beginning of the video, you saw also then when the boy and girl interacted, they were obviously from different cultures, but the text was already translated to them as they spoke. Okay, any questions?